Hey, what's up? My name's Justin. Welcome to 65 Drums, and this is my quick review of this Laurin drum snare. Now, a lot of people probably haven't heard of Laurin drums. They're a smaller company based out of Canada, I believe. It's not a giant corporation like Roland or Alesis or anything like that. And they specialize in making snares. So for example, if you had a Roland TD11K and you wanted a bigger snare that looked cooler, then you can buy one of these things. Including shipping, the final price is around $175 by the time it gets to your door. And one of the cool things about it is the fact that you can change whatever shell wrap you want. They sent me this as a review unit, and they let me go on their website and just, look at the different shell wraps and choose what I wanted. I went for something a little bit more low-key, but if you want something like a flag pattern or I don't know, like a painting or stuff, they have dozens of different shell wraps on their website. That's the main selling point of the snare, the fact that you can customize it. As far as the way it looks, I think it looks pretty freaking awesome. You can even get a custom shell wrap if you want. When you open up the snare, you'll notice that it's a center mounted trigger unit. So you've got a piece of wood that goes across the center of the snare. You've got a foam cone, and underneath of that obviously is the center piezo. That can be moved up and down so you can decide how much pressure that's putting against the top mesh head right there, so that's nice. The rim piezo, it's kind of odd. It's over here on the side of the shell. It's nearly touching the top mesh head, which I don't think is the best idea. I would have moved it down, but I can't because it's actually glued there in place. As you can see, everything's wired to the bottom jack right here. So you plug it in right at the bottom instead of on the shell like a lot of other companies do. I actually have another snare right here. This is a regular acoustic snare drum shell, and it's got an R drums plug head on the bottom of it, so I'm actually kind of used to having the input on the bottom right there. Now they do have a bracket that holds that bottom input against the shell a little bit to stabilize it. Unfortunately, they went with a plastic bracket, and that did snap in half. Just wanted to let you guys know that. The top mesh head here, I completely forgot to talk about it. It's a 2-ply mesh head. It sort of feels like an Alesis Strike mesh head if you've ever played one of those. It's not quite as good feeling as a Roland mesh head, but it's better than a standard, regular Alesis mesh head. So it's just an unmarked, got a clean look to it. And one of the reasons why it has such a clean look to it is that there's a piece of fabric on the bottom of the mesh head, and that sort of, cancels out any sort of light leakage. So it looks really, really black here. If there wasn't that piece of fabric, you could see right through it. In fact, if you jiggle it around, you can actually start to see through it if you move the fabric away. See, you can sort of see through it there, and you can't see through it right there. So I'm guessing it's for looks, and it could be slight sound dampening, but that's probably not the reason why it was there in the first place. And of course, there is a rubber rim on this as well, and I like the thickness they've chosen here. It's not so thick that it feels unnatural to play on, but it's not so thin that it's incredibly loud, so I like that. Now, unfortunately, what I don't like about this snare is that it was built in a rush. I can tell this in several different ways. Number one, that wood crossbeam right there, it should have been a piece of metal, like a piece of steel or aluminum, but whatever, they made it out of wood. Unfortunately, they didn't paint the bottom of it. It's one of those little things where you're not going to see it unless you take apart the bottom head and turn it upside down, but they left a sticker on there and it's unpainted. Also, there's little pieces of glue that they just didn't wipe off before they dried right up here near the top of the rim. And also, as you can see, in some instances, the hardware isn't straight on the shell. These things are just pointing to the fact that this snare was built very, very rapidly. Now, I do realize sometimes companies get a backlog and they have to build a bunch of units all at once, but those are kind of obvious things that should have been done right. One last thing I should probably mention before we move on to the triggering results is that when you just hit the snare and it's not plugged in or anything, the acoustic sound is got a metallic ring to it. I think there's springs or something inside of these things, and they sort of ring while you're playing it. I tested this primarily with 2 different drum modules, a Cap Percussion KT4 and a Roland TD30. Now, I got it working fine with the Roland TD30, not so much with the Cap Percussion KT4. It was really weird. The triggering just wasn't quite right. I tried to get it working, and I just couldn't. I spent 2 days working on the settings, and I just never really polished it enough. So if you have a KT4 drum module, don't buy this snare. Moving over to the TD30, I did get it working. It's not as good as a Roland pad as far as triggering goes, but I did get it to work. You might have to adjust the retrigger cancel setting or the mask time setting, because I did experience double triggering. That's when you hit the snare once and a ghost hit happens that you didn't actually hit. And so you might have to mess with settings. It's not like a plug and play situation. In my personal experience, you're gonna have to mess with the settings and stuff. Also, I had to adjust the rim head adjustment. These are all little things that happen when you use components from one company with components from another company. I'll try to put my settings that I'm currently using on this snare on the screen, so if you happen to have a Roland TD30 or another Roland drum module that has those trigger parameter editing features, then hopefully this will help you out. Okay, so now you know a little bit more about the snare, you know about the internals, you know about the triggering performance, you know about the different shell wrap options. Now it's time to talk about whether or not it's worth buying for the price. So again, this thing costs about $175 after you pay for shipping, and its main competition is probably the brand new snare that's on the Roland TD17 line, the PDX12 pad. From photos, this one might seem larger, but that's more because it has an actual shell. Meanwhile, the Roland one just has like a plastic body to it. It's more of a pad. This is more of a drum type design. Now, obviously, the main differences between the two is that this one just looks way, way cooler, and you can customize the heck out of it. Everything about this, you can change how it looks. As far as triggering performance goes, this one is not on par with the Roland PDX12 pad. The Roland pad just has better triggering performance, and also you won't get any hot spotting because the trigger is actually near the rim. This one, I know people hate hot spotting. I don't care about it as much, but some people really hate it. When you get to the center, there is a big spike as you get closer to the center, just like all pads that have the center trigger mounted unit. So between these two, there's only a $25 difference. I personally would go with the Roland pad, even though it's ugly, because I just would rather go for the solid trigger performance. This pad is for the people that want something that looks incredibly cool for a really low price. There are compromises to make this happen though. Obviously with my unit, it was built in a big hurry, and there were little things about it, like the fact that there was like little remnants of glue. They forgot to paint the trigger bar. They also put these on slightly crooked. So there are sacrifices that will be made if you want to buy something that looks amazing at a really low price. So between this one and the Roland one, it's really up to you. I would personally take the Roland one, and if you really want something that looks amazing, maybe you would take this one. That has been my quick review of this Laurin drum snare. If you happen to own one of these, because I do know that some people that watch this channel have a Laurin snare, let me know what you think of that. Leave a little mini review down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an amazing day. See you in a few.